Yahuwah our Lord, Yahuwah is one, and you shall love Yahuwah your Lord with all your heart, with all your being, with all your might. And these words I command you today, they shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign in your hand.
Shalom, shalom, shalom,
And
shalom.
they shall be as frontlets between your
Shalom,
eyes.
Vaca.
And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house.
Abba, I pray that this word, Father, I pray in the name of Yahushua. I told all you, Father. I told all you, Abba, for another day today, Father, for blessing me almost out to be in the land of the living. Told Rabbi for the Mishpachah, Abba Yahushua. Told Rabbi, Abba, for this word and this revelation, Abba Yahushua. I pray that this word spreads like wildfire throughout the four corners of the earth, Abba Yahushua. Let these be your words and not mine, or Adonai Yahushua. Told Rabbi so much almost out for the wisdom and revelation. Told Rabbi for your love. Told Rabbi for unraveling and unveiling these things almost high, for you are wonderful and worthy to be praised. You are wonderful and holy and just, O Most High. You are just and through. Blessings, glory, and honor be to your holy name. Blessings, glory, and honor be to your Kodesh name, Father. Total Rabbi Saba. For you are through and your mercy endure forever. You are amazing and just and holy. And you're through, O Most High. Total Rabbi, Father. I pray that you baruch this message, Abba Yahushua. Father, I pray, O Most High, that this message brings forth clarity, Father. This brings forth more understanding, Abba Yahushua. On the topic, O Most High, of your Kodesh days, we have wonderful Shabbat, Abba Yahushua. O Most High, please, I pray to you, O Most High, that you continuously, O Most High, be in the midst of the Mishpach. Total Rabbi for being in the midst of us, Abba. Total Rabbi for your love and your Ahava, your Shalom, and for everything that you do for us every day. For you are amazing and wonderful and worthy to be praised. There's no one like you. You are wonderful and perfect. You are wonderful and just and through. O Total Rabbi Saba. O Total Rabbi Abba. For you are wonderful and worthy to be praised.
With all of your strength.
Blessings, glory, and honor be to your holy name. Hallelujah.
Second, like it is,
hallelujah.
you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other command greater than these. Selah.
All right, y'all. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. This is your Ak, Mushal Asaph ben Yisrael. I want to give eternal honors to Yahuwah and Yahusha, to Saba Yahuwah and Adonai Yahusha, Melech HaOlam, King of the universe. All praise to Yahuwah, Alu of Israel for him. Man, praise Yahuwah and Yahusha. I want to give an infinite honors to our Melech King, infinite honors to Melech Musha, Melech Yahusha. I want to give double honors to Malka Kayil, Malka Yada. I want to give double honors to Rosh to Hagabir Malaka and Rosh Hashanah Yitro and Rosh Ya'as, Zaken Yeshayahu. I want to give a double honors to all the Mushalim and the assemblies and the 7 assemblies. And I want to give a double honors to the Ishas. And I want to give honors to all second-tier leadership and Emiyot and elders. All praise to the Most High. All praise to Yahuwah, Lu of Israel. I want to give a big shalom and ahab to everybody who's on here right now. Told out Yahuwah and Yahusha for all of y'all. We're going to get it in. We're going to continue this discussion on the Shabbat. And so basically, for this prep day, what better way to go on a prep day? Preparing for Shabbat than to talk about Shabbat. So let's get into it, y'all. So one of the things that we're gonna kind of follow up on that I touched on last week is this is a specific point that I want to try to make a little bit clearer. 'Cause I want to make sure that y'all really understand this. So, 'cause it's a very important point to understand. So that's what I'll do. Let's go to Vaca 23. Let's go to Vaca 23, Mishpaka. And what I will do, I will pull out my e-sword. So let's do that. I want y'all to look at this, y'all. All right, the book of Leviticus of Vaca 23. So let's look at this. Vaca 23. Let's start with verse 1. It says, And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feast of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. In Hebrew, that's Kodesh Mikras. Kodesh Mikra. These are my feasts. So it goes into 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, or Kodesh Mikra, or a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. That's in all your dwellings. So, that goes, I'm not going to touch on that right now. But the point is it goes into the Shabbat. We see the Shabbat. 6 days you shall work. The 7 days is the Shabbat. This is in Vaca 23. This is a chapter in Torah that goes into the appointed times, the whole chapter, pretty much. Now, this is what you don't see in this verse. You can learn a lot about the scriptures by what Yahuwah doesn't mention as well. Not only what he specified, but also what he doesn't mention. A lot of times you can get an understanding by noticing these things. He did not include no dates for the Shabbat here. Yahuwah didn't specify any dates for the Shabbat. That's a very important point that I want to make sure is very fully understood, because that is a game changer. That is a case closed right there. This is why, because every single feast day, every single appointed time that is associated with a specific day of the month, in other words, all the appointed times that have anything to do with the moon, in other words, they are on a specific day of the month, Yahuwah always gave the dates. He did every single time. He always gave the dates of his appointed times. He never left that up for you for guesswork when it came to the appointed times that are on a set day of the month every year. In other words, that means that if they're on a set date of the month, if they're on a set day of the month every year, that means that they're associated with the moon. You use the moon to calculate them. That's what that means. Every time there's an appointed time that's associated with a set that's on a set day of a month, Yahuwah always gives the exact date. Yahuwah does not even one time, leave that up for you to guess when it comes to his appointed times. Now, when we're talking about the scriptures, there are 7 feasts. 7 feasts. You got Pesach, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You have the Feast of First Fruits. You have Shabu. You have Yom Teruah. You have Sukkot. Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. That's the 7 feasts of Yahuwah that you will see in the Torah. You'll see in the scriptures. Now, there's other traditional feasts, but that's another. That's not what we're talking about right now. That's another topic. They got other traditions out there. That's traditional feasts that are through to observe, like Hanukkah. Things like that. You're not going to find them in the scriptures like that. There is Purim. You can find that in the book of Esther, but again, it's not in the scriptures that you are commanded to observe it. It's 7 feasts of Yahuwah in the year. Those are the Torah-based feasts that you are commanded to observe. So this is why I'm bringing that up, because it's interesting that before they get into the feast, Yahuwah brings out the 7-day weekly cycle. He said 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath. That's before he gets into the 7 feasts. It's very interesting that he does that. But we'll look into that. Well, I'll say this. The 7-day weekly cycle, there's a correlation between that and the 7 feasts of Yahuwah. There's a correlation with that. But let's keep talking. Let's keep going. So we notice there was no date given for the Shabbat. He just says, Yahuwah says 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day is the Shabbat. There's no date. Let's look at the other feasts that are, when it comes to, says verse 4, these are the feasts of Yahuwah, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. On the 14th day of the first month at twilight is Pesach, is Yahuwah's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread, and on the first day you shall have a holy convocation. So when it came to the feast of unleavened bread, when it came to Pesach, Yahuwah gave the date of when to keep it. Why? Because the Pesach is associated with the moon. It's associated with the moon. It goes back to this. Shimo chapter 12, it says, this month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. This is when Yahuwah first gave the calendar to the children of Israel when it was time for them to leave captivity in Mitzrayim. He told them when the beginning of the month was, and he told them the first day of the year was in the month as well. And then that's when he goes into telling them what date. It's so they can calculate Pesach, y'all. That's why he gave them the cycle, the monthly cycle. If the Shabbat was associated with the monthly cycle, knowing the track record of the Most High, knowing that all throughout the scriptures, anything associated with the monthly cycle that is a appointed time that Yahuwah commands you to observe, he simply gives you the date. Every single time. We're looking at just knowing the scriptures, knowing Yahuwah. Every single time he gives you the date. What does that mean? That means if you were right, if you believe that the new moon is the Sabbath and you're supposed to count the Sabbath based off of the new moon, then that would mean that the Sabbath is on a fixed day every month. That means that the Sabbath will be on the 8th day of every month, literally. It'll be on the 8th day of every month, and I believe the 16th day of every month, the 22nd day of every month, and I believe the 29th day. I might not have my math all the way right, but the point is, if you go by this doctrine and you believe that the new moon is a Shabbat, then what you are saying, you got to understand what they're saying. They are saying that the Shabbat is literally on the exact same date every month. So, for example, they would say that the Shabbat is on the 8th day every month. If the Shabbat is on the 8th day every month, knowing the track record of Yahuwah and how he does in the scriptures regarding his appointed times, it would surely be somewhere in the scriptures where Yahuwah would say, hey, speak to the children of Israel and tell them on the 8th day of every month you are to have a Sabbath rest to Yahuwah. 6 days you work, but on the 7th day, which will be the 8th of the month, the 8th day of the month, you're to have a Sabbath rest to Yahuwah. There was never not one time that the Most High ever specified that, hey, on the 8th, 16th, 22nd, and 29th day of every month, you are to hold a Shabbat to Yahuwah. Not one time, y'all. But all the other feasts that are associated with the moon, he does that. He does that. We can prove it. We can look. Let's keep looking. Let's keep looking. So you see on Pesach, the Most High did that. Feast of First Fruits isn't associated with the moon at all. So we're going to skip that and go back to that. Shabu is not associated with the moon at all. So we're going to skip that and look at the feast that's associated with the moon. Yom Teruah. Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and said, speak to the children of Israel in the 7th month on the first day of the month. You shall have a Shabbat rest, a memorial of blowing the shofar, Kodesh convocation. That's Yom Teruah. He's saying on the first day of the 7th month. He don't leave you to guess when the Yom Teruah is, because it's on the same day every 7th month. It's always on the same date. It's always going to be on the first day of the 7th month. Yom Kippur, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, shall be the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. And you go to Sukkot, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be a feast. This is a track record of Yahuwah. Are y'all following me? If the Shabbat was on the same day every month, Yahuwah would have specified that. The reason why Yahuwah never specified that in the scriptures is because the Shabbat is not on the same day of the month every month. It's on different days of the month every month. It falls on different days because the Shabbat moves independently. The 7-day weekly cycle moves independently of the 30-day monthly cycle. It's technically 29.53 day monthly cycle. That's why Yahuwah never specified that the Shabbat is on any day of a month, because the Shabbat is not associated with the months. The Shabbat is not associated with the months. So what do I mean by that? When it comes to a new moon, you can't say that the new moon is always a Shabbat. No possible way. The new moon will fall on different days of the 7-day weekly cycle every month. It will fall on different days, y'all, because they work independently of each other. Now let's look at this. Now let's look at the two feasts that's in Leviticus 23 that are not associated with the moon. Let's take a look. Let's look at verse 9. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give to you and reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah to be accepted on your behalf. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. What is it saying? There is no date for the Feast of First Fruits. Y'all notice that? There's no date set for the Feast of First Fruits. There's no specific date set for that, Miss Vaca. You know why? Because the Feast of First Fruits is not based off of the moon. The Feast of First Fruits is based off of the 7-day weekly cycle, which is totally independent of the moon. That's why anything that's calculated based off of the weekly cycle, Yahuwah don't give you a date for it. He just lets you know that it's the day after the Sabbath. He's referring to the day after the Sabbath after Pesach. What does that mean? The Feast of First Fruits will always be on the same day of the week, which is Yom Rishon or Yom Echad, or in English it's called Sunday. The Feast of First Fruits will always be on a Sunday. It'll always be on the same day every year, the same day of the week. It'll be on a different day of the month every year. It'll fall on different dates every year, but it'll be on the same day of the week every year. I really hope y'all are following what I'm saying. So keeping that in mind, we got the Feast of First Fruits. Yahuwah didn't give it, didn't say on the 10th day of the month, on the 20th day of the month, you ought to keep the Feast of First Fruits. He doesn't do that because the Feast of First Fruits is calculated based off of the weekly cycle and not off of the monthly cycle. I want y'all to really follow and look at what the scriptures is screaming to us. He says it's the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. So you when Pesach is. Pesach falls on the same day every month. It's on the 14th day of the first month. We know that. And so what you do is, during that time, there's going to be a Shabbat sometimes coming up there, because you got Pesach, and then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is 7 days long. So you got Pesach, which is on the 14th, then the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which was from the 15th, and it's for 7 days long. sometime within that, there's usually a Shabbat. And what they're letting you know is the day after that Shabbat, you already keep first fruits. What's the day after Shabbat? It's always the Yom Echad or Yom Rishon, or in English, Sunday. It's the Feast of First Fruits. Y'all, the Feast of First Fruits actually that's about the resurrection of Yahusha. The Feast of First Fruits is about the resurrection. Very big deal. Very big deal. That's why it's counted and it's calculated differently. It's calculated based on the Shabbat. You know the Feast of First Fruits is coming because it's always right the day after Shabbat when you do the wave offering, where the priests are waving the offering. It's about the resurrection of Yahusha. Because Yahusha resurrected on the Feast of First Fruits, y'all. He resurrected on the Feast of First Fruits. 3 days and 3 nights. They found him gone out of the tomb, and it was on the Feast of First Fruits. It was the day after the Sabbath, after Pesach. It was. Just read it in Brit Hadashah. It was the day after the Sabbath, after Pesach. It was on a Yom Echad. It was on a Sunday. Y'all, that's why the church tries to say that they observe Sunday instead of Shabbat, because they know that Yahusha resurrected on a Sunday. So they'll try to make that as an excuse. That's not the real. Now let me clarify. That's not the real reason why they changed the Shabbat to Sunday. We got into that last week. We know that the reason why they changed the Shabbat to Sunday, a lot of it has to do with the church trying to distance themselves from the Yahudim, from the children of Israel, and the influence the children of Israel had over Rome and different things like that. That's really the real reason. It's not about, they just made, they just use that as an excuse. Oh, well, it's the resurrection, happened on that day, so we're gonna, change that to the Sabbath. And then they even went even further, and they did, instead of Pesach, they did Easter and Easter Sunday and things like that. But keep in mind what I'm saying, Mishpaka. Keep in mind my point here, because as you see, first fruits is calculated based off of the weekly cycle, not based off of the month. All right, let's keep going. So now it goes into the offerings of the first fruit. Now, you shall offer on that day when you wave the sheaf a male lamb, see, of the first year without blemish as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. Its grain offering shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah for a sweet aroma. And its drink offering shall be of wine 1/4 of a hin. You shall eat neither bread nor parched grain nor fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Eluah. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. Now listen, this is interesting, y'all. Now look at this. Verse 15, and you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf. You should count yourselves from when? From the day after the Shabbat. They're talking about first fruits. Yahusha resurrected on first fruits, Mishpachim. And then you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths. You notice this ain't talking nothing about no day to the month right now. This is literally referring to the weekly cycle. That you're gonna do accounting based off of the weekly cycle that Yahuwah established, not by the monthly cycle, not when it comes to Shabuot. Remember, Shabuot is the Feast of Weeks. Shabuot is the Feast of Weeks. Remember that. Shabuot, the Hebrew word it comes from Shabua. It's the plural of Shabua. That's what Shabuot is. Shabua is Shin Bet Wav Ayin. It comes from, it's very closely related to the Hebrew word for the number 7, which is Sheba. It also is very closely related to the Hebrew word for oath, for making like an oath. It's like the Feast of Oaths. The number 7, Sheba. It's also very closely related to Shabbat. Oh, snap. No wonder the feast of Shabuot is associated with the Shabbat. You got to count 7 what? Shabbats. You have to count 7 Sabbaths in order to get, and then on the 50th day is Shabuot. There ain't nowhere in the scriptures where Yahuwah says on the 20th day of this month you are to keep Shabuot. There's nowhere in the scriptures where Yahuwah gives you a specific date for Shabuot. Why? Because Shabuot falls on a different date every year, because Shabuot is not based on the moon at all. It's separate. Shabuot is about counting the Sabbaths to get to it. You got to count them yourself. We call it the counting of the Omer. Many of y'all may have, who have observed the Shabuot may have done that, the counting of the Omer. Well, you got to count the 7 Sabbaths. You got to count the days based off of the weekly cycle, 49 days, and then on that 50th day is Shabuot. And Shabuot always falls on a Yom Echad, or in other words, it always falls on a Yom Rishon, or in English, it always falls on a Sunday. Every year, Shabuot will always fall on a Sunday because it is based off of the weekly cycle, not off of the monthly cycle. So because of that, it's on the same day of the week every year. If anybody is keeping Shabuot on any day other than Yom Echad, then, that's not through, because the scriptures show the day that you're supposed to keep it. Let's look at it. And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. Count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall offer a new grain offering to Yahuwah. You count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. What's the day after the Sabbath? It's always Yom Echad or Yom Rishon. Or in English, they call it Sunday. And you shall offer a new grain offering to Yahuwah. You shall bring from your dwellings 2 wave loaves of 2/10 of an ephah. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. They are the first fruits to Yahuwah. And you shall offer with the bread 7 lambs of the first year, without blemish, 1 young bull and 2 rams. They shall be as burnt offering to the Yahuwah, with their grain offering and their drink offering, an offering made by fire for a sweet aroma to Yahuwah. Then you shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs of the first year as a sacrifice of Shalom offering. The priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering before Yahuwah with 2 lambs. They shall be kodesh to Yahuwah for the priest. And you shall proclaim on the same day that it is a holy convocation to you. You shall do no customary work on it. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Yeah, this is huge. Then look what it says right after this. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field when you reap, nor shall you gather any gleaning from your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yahuwah, your Lord. There's a reason why Yahuwah said that regarding Shabuot. Because Shabuot is about obedience, y'all. Shabuot, again, it's like the Feast of Oaths. So when you look at the Hebrew word Shabuah and Sheba, the number 7, Shabuah, the word for oath, is similar to that as well. Like, for example, the Beersheba. Beersheba just means the well of oaths. So the number 7, it also means oaths as well. Like an oath, like a promise. A covenant. You get what I'm saying? A promise being made, an oath being made. All right. So what we see here, why this is important, is because what we see here is that not all the feast days are based off of the moon. They're not. Now, going further, is very interesting into this, because remember in the beginning of Vaca 23, the first verses, it starts off with the Sabbath, saying 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath. Even in the beginning of Vaca 23, the Most High is distinguishing the Sabbath as something different than the feast days that are associated with the moon. The Most High is showing the Sabbath as something different, or separate. This is powerful, y'all, because what this is saying basically is that the Sabbath, in a sense, operates outside of time, y'all. See, the moon was made for times and seasons and things like that. But it's like the Sabbath operates outside of that. The Sabbath operates, the 7-day weekly cycle operates independently from that. So it's like the Shabbat is outside of time. See, y'all, the Shabbat symbolizes moving by the Spirit. The Shabbat symbolizes moving by the Ruach. The Shabbat symbolizes moving in obedience. You see what I'm saying? So that's why that is very, very significant. Very, very significant. So Shavuot, we know, is associated with the Shabbat as well. So let's think about Shavuot. What happened on Shavuot? The commandments were given on Shavuot, right? The commandments were given, y'all. The commandments were given on Shavuot, y'all. The commandments. The commandments was a light. The commandments was a light, y'all. Let's take a look at the scripture real quick. Tehillim, or the Psalms 119, 105, it says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Psalm 119, if y'all just know the context, Psalm 119 is about the whole chapter. It's the longest chapter in the scriptures, and it is about the Torah. It's about the word of the Most High. Generally speaking, the majority of the chapter, that's what it's about. So what we know is that Yahuwah, when he has feast days that are on a set day, he tells you the exact day it is. He don't want you to have to guess that, because he wants you to observe them. That's all throughout the scriptures. But when it is a feast day that's not associated with the moon, you have to calculate it using the weekly cycle. You count how many Sabbaths. The Sabbath is about obedience. The Sabbath is about moving in the Ruach, living by the Spirit. The Sabbath is interesting in that. That's why it's, in a sense, the symbolism of the Sabbath not being associated with the moon cycle, being its own thing, having its own cycle, is that it operates. The symbolism is that the Sabbath operates outside of time, Mishpach. That's very significant. It operates outside of time. See, Yahuwah, he operates outside of time. He's not limited. He's not limited by the boundaries of time. He operates outside of that. You see what I'm saying? He's independent of time. The Sabbath, Shabbat, symbolizes that. And I submit the Shavuot, it does as well. So the Torah was given on Shavuot. Think about on day one. So the weekly cycle started on day one. What day is day one, y'all? Isn't that Yom Echad, right? Isn't that what we would call Yom Rishon, or what many would call Sunday? That's when the weekly cycle was established. It was established. Y'all got it, man. This is wild. The weekly cycle was established according to Genesis 1 on day one. Yahuwah said, let there be light. And then the scriptures say that he created day and night. He called the day Yom and the night Lila. Eating in the morning was the first day, Yom Echad, y'all. Yahuwah established the weekly cycle in day 1, which would be Yom Echad, or Sunday. The Feast of First Fruits, or you have to count the Sabbaths, is always on the first day, or Yom Echad, the first day of the weekly cycle. Shabu, which is not associated with the moon, always falls on the first day, Mishpaka. Do y'all see how significant this is? Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, because it's what? Surrounded by, because it's all about the weekly cycle for the Feast of Weeks. It always falls on Yom Echad, which is the first day, or what many would call Sunday, which is the day when Yahuwah established the weekly cycle. Way before the moon was created. This is the moon was created on day 4. But we're going to get into how this is associated even with day 4 as well, because this is another thing y'all want to look at. Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, is the 4th feast day. Now, this is what happened on the 4th day. Yahuwah did create the sun, moon, and the stars on the 4th day, which was to govern and to rule the day and to rule the night. The Sabbath, y'all, was a part of the 10 Commandments. Do you know that the Sabbath was the 4th commandment in Torah? In Exodus chapter 20, the Sabbath is the 4th commandment. In Vaca 23, Shavuot is the 4th feast, which is about the giving of the commandments. And in the 4th day of the weekly cycle, that is when the sun was created, which was made to govern the days. It was made to rule and to govern the days. Y'all see how this is tying together, Mishpaka? I hope so, because this is very significant. So Shavuot, in a sense, is about operating outside of time as well, operating in the Ruach. It's about being a light to the nations. It's about being a light. It's like, so the Torah was given on Shavuot. Let me see if I can find something real quick. I want y'all to see this. I want y'all to see this, man. This is wild, y'all. Let's see. Man, they don't save the sign in. Be wildin'. All right. Y'all give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. All right, this was back in. Praise Yahusha. Yeah, I'm finna pull this up. This is significant. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's not the right one. Doggone it. This is the one right here. So while that's loading, the Shavuot is about a light. You see here in the scriptures, so the Torah was given on Shavuot, but then you see that the word is a light. It's considered to be a light, a lamp to the feet. Yahuwah said, let there be light on day one. He said, let there be light. He said, let there be light. So it's interesting that Shavuot is always on a Yom Rishon or a Sunday. All right, let's pull it up here. Let's see here. So what I want y'all to do, I want y'all to look at this real quick. All right. So this is the Hebrew word for Torah. Y'all can even see my little notes down there. All right. Tav Wav Resh Hey. Now, one thing that's interesting about Torah is that it's very closely related to the word. Okay, that's Oats sign. That's not what I was looking for. But it's okay. I'll just say it, and then y'all look it up for yourself for time. But the word for light is or. So Torah has the word or in it, which is the word for light. So let's see if I can... Because that was in Genesis 1. Let there be light. Let there be light. Let's see. Here we go. I wish I could make that bigger, but we're not gonna belabor it too much right now. But this is Bereshit 1 in the Blue Letter Bible, so y'all can see the Hebrew. Let's see. It says, and Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So let's look at what that is in Hebrew. There we go. So where it says, let there be light, this is the word or. All right, let me click on it so y'all can really see it. That's the word for light in Hebrew, or. Aleph Wav Resh. Or Aleph Wav Resh. So as you see, the word for Torah has the Wav Resh right here in the middle. So as you see, it's very closely related to light. Because the Torah is a light, y'all. That's why in Psalm 119, Dawood said that your word is a lamp to my feet. He's talking about the word of the Most High. He's talking about Yahuwah's word. That's what the Torah is, the word. You can see the Torah has the Wav Resh in there, which is very similar to the word for light in the scriptures. When Yahuwah said, let there be light. The Torah is about an oath. It's about a sign. It's about a mark, isn't it? Matter of fact, you see it in the breakdown. The Tav is the mark or seal. It's about a mark or seal that's on the forehead. That's on the head. The Rosh. It's a mark or seal attached or secured to the head. through revelation. It's about the head being sealed by the Ruach. It's about the head being, it's about being sealed by the Ruach. You see that in the word for Torah. So I just wanted to show y'all that real quick because that's significant, y'all. Because on Shavuot, you celebrated the giving of the Torah. And Shavuot, again, is on the first day. It's on the first day of the weekly cycle on Yom Echad or Yom Rishon. And Shavuot is about light. Because the Torah is a light. Now, while keeping that in mind, you go to what else happened. You look at what else happened on Shavuot. Well, Shavuot, the covenant was given. So the commandments were given, and Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Israel. He made an everlasting covenant with them. Didn't we talk about how the Shabbat is a sign of the covenant? It's about returning to the covenant, Shub Tav. It's about returning to the commandments. So you see that even with that being said, even with that being laid out, that lines up as well. That even in the word for Shabbat or Shabuot, you see oath in there or covenant, Sheba. It's about making an oath or a covenant. What else happened on Shavuot? Well, in Acts chapter 2, the Ruach fell on the assembly. That's when the Ruach was poured out. That happened on Shavuot. Let's go to Acts chapter 2 real quick. The book of Acts chapter 2. It says, when the day of Shavuot, or it says Pentecost, that's the day of Shavuot, had fully come. They were all with one accord in one place. You know what this is saying? This is saying on the day of Shavuot had fully come, they were all in Echad. Echad, y'all. This is on the day of Yom Echad. Do y'all see this? This is going on the day of Yom Echad. This is on Yom Echad, or what many would call Sunday. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then appeared to them divided tongues as of what? Fire. That's about light. Let there be light. And one sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterances. Y'all, this is amazing. So this is when the Ruach was poured out. It wasn't poured out on, and it was poured out on Shavuot. There's a reason why Yahuwah had that to happen. He had the Ruach being poured out the same day that the Torah was given. It was thousands of years later, but it was on the same feast day. Because Yahusha is looking for people who are going to serve him in Ruach and in truth. Ruach and Torah. We know that the truth is Torah. The scriptures in Psalm 119, it says, thy law is truth. So when you talk about truth, that's always associated with Torah. You have the Ruach HaKodesh poured out on Shavuot. Shavuot is about light. Let there be light. That happened on Yom Echad. Shavuot is about being in Echad. It's about being diligent with the commandments. It's about the weekly cycle, Mishpachah. It's about the Shabbat. Because it was on Yom Echad when Yahuwah created the days and established the weekly cycle. That's when he said, this is day one. It was on Yom Echad when he had set all that in place and separated the light from darkness. And that's what Shavuot is about, separating the light from darkness. On the first Shavuot, and when the commandments were given, y'all, 3,000 people were killed. Y'all remember the golden calf? Y'all know that was through the process of the commandments being given. Moshe was trying to come down and bring the tablets. And then he saw the people worshiping a golden calf, and then all that happened, and 3,000 people died. That was Yahuwah literally saying, "Let there be light." And he separated the light from the darkness. He was separating the Kodesh from the wicked. There was a separation that was being made. Like Moshe literally was like, "Man, if you were Yahuwah, be over here, if you're not, stay over there." He made a distinction. That's what I'm trying to say. A division happened to where the darkness was separated from, where the light was separated from the darkness. Y'all, this happened on Yom Echad in the creation week. You also see this happen again during the days of the Exodus, but that's a whole nother thing. Because I talked about this a while ago, called the Great Reset, how the creation week starts all over again throughout the scriptures. But it happened again where the Most High separated the darkness from the light during the days of the Shimo, during the days of the Exodus, when the Israelites were being saved or delivered from Mitzrayim. Let's look at so keeping all that. Now keep all that in mind. Now let's go back to what we looked at last week in Exodus 16, and we'll end it there for today. Book of Shemot, chapter 16. All right, now let's look at the book of Shemot, chapter 16. And now let's look at it from the perspective that we have now. I think this will make most sense. And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed from the land of Mitzrayim. So this is literally during what we would call around the time of the second Pesach. This is in the 2nd month. It's on the 15th day of the month. It says, then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moshe and Aharon in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died in the hand of Yahuwah in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat and when we ate bread to the full." So this is going, now they're complaining about food. "For you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Behold, I will rain bread from the Shamaim for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they..." Now listen, let me start over. Oh, my bad, that's significant. Hold on. Look what it says in verse 4. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Behold, I will rain bread from the Shamaim for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my Torah or not." Wasn't the Feast of Weeks or Shabuot associated with the Shabbat? Isn't Shabuot about walking in his law of Yahuwah? Isn't that when Yahuwah gave the Torah, gave the commandments? Isn't that when Yahuwah made the covenant? He gave the commandments, which resulted in a covenant being made where the children of Israel said, "We will do these things." It was about the children of Israel, our people, keeping the commandments or not, y'all. And now we see here that Yahuwah is like, okay, I'm going to rain bread from heaven. And to drive this home, this is the 2nd month of the 15th day. This is over a month and 15 days after Yahuwah gave the monthly cycle to the children of Israel in Exodus 12. Exodus 12, it says in verse 2, "This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the 1st month of the year to you." It wasn't until the 2nd month of the 15th day that now he's looking at giving them the Shabbat. Because Yahuwah had been established since the beginning that the Shabbat is totally separate from the moon cycle. Look at verse 5. It says, "And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." So that was the test that Yahuwah was giving them on whether or not they would keep Torah. And this is how he was giving them. This is when he gave them, showed the children of Israel what day to keep Shabbat and how to calculate it. Then Moshe and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, that Areb you shall know that Yahuwah has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And in the Boker you shall see the kabod of Yahuwah, for he hears your complaints against Yahuwah. But what are we that you complain against us? Also Moshe said, this shall be seen when Yahuwah gives you meat to eat in the Areb. This is important. So Yahuwah specifically gave them meat to eat at a certain time. It wasn't at any time. It was in the evening or Areb, and in the Boker in the morning. Bread to the food. These are specific appointed times that are every day that Yahuwah established in the scriptures. He established this the evening and morning since day one. Do y'all know that just this Yahuwah mentioning Areb and Boker like that already brings you right back to the weekly cycle that Yahuwah established in creation? Go back to Genesis 1. So I can prove it to y'all. In the beginning, the Lord created the Shamaim and the Eretz. The Eretz was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. The Ruach of Eluah was hovering over the face of the waters. And Eluah said, let there be light, and there was light. Eluah saw the light that it was through, and Eluah divided the light from the darkness. Eluah called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning, Areb and the Boker were day one. Then he goes into the firmament. And then notice that in verse 8, after he does the firmament and divides the water, Yahuwah uses this phrase before establishing that this is the second day. So the evening and the morning were the second day. And then you go on and on. Yahuwah did that throughout the day, the weekly creation week. I mean, he did that throughout the creation week every day. Every day. So going back to Shemot, Exodus 16, when you see that Yahuwah said this in verse 8, verse 8, he said, also Moshe said, this shall be seen when Yahuwah gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to the full. He's bringing you back to the creation week, y'all. That this is about the weekly cycle, evening and morning. Those were daily appointed times that the Most High set up as far as the weekly cycle. If you go on into the book of Shimo, go on to chapter 28, you'll see that he actually, or chapter 29, no, I think it's chapter 28 down some. You go down to chapter 29. This is chapter 30. Let's see. It's chapter 29. Yeah, I'm in the right chapter. I just it's verse 38. All right. Here it goes. Now look at this. Now this is what you shall offer on the altar: 2 lambs of the first year, day by day continually. 1 lamb you shall offer when? In the boker, in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. That's in the Rev. They just said twilight here. But it's basically evening and morning that the Most High has specified for offerings to be offered up to Yahuwah every single day. Those were the times that our people would traditionally pray. They call them the prayer times. and different things like that. But these are the daily sacrifices Yahuwah established for them to be every evening and morning when you go up some. But let's go back. So Yahuwah said, yeah, I'm going to give you meat to eat in the evening, and a boker bread to the full. For Yahuwah hears your complaints which you make against him. And what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against Yahuwah. Then Moshe spoke to Aharon, say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before Yahuwah, for he has heard your complaints. Now it came to pass as Aharon spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, as they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the kabod of Yahuwah appeared in a cloud. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, I've heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the boker you shall be filled with bread. That's important. Again, that's established in the weekly cycle. It's a test of their obedience. It's an oath. It's about a covenant. And it's about obedience, like I said already. And it's about the weekly cycle. Make sure I'm covering it all. But yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. Let's keep going. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah your Eluah. So it was that quails came up in a rev and covered the camp, and in a boker the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, this is the bread which Yahuwah has given you to eat. This is the thing which Yahuwah has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need, 1 omer for each person, according to the number of the persons. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. Then the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. So when they measured it by omers, he who gathered much had nothing left over, and he who had gathered little had no lack. Every man had gathered according to each one's need. And Moshe said, let no one leave any of it until boker. Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moshe, but some of them left part of it until boker, and it bred worms and stank, and Moshe was angry with them. So they gathered it every boker, every man according to his need, and when the sun became hot, it melted. And so it was on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. Then he said to them, this is what Yahuwah has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Shabbat to Yahuwah. Bake what you will bake today, and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until boker. So they laid it up until boker, as Moshe commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Then Moshe said, eat that today, for today is a Shabbat to Yahuwah. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, the Shabbat, the Sabbath, there will be none. Now it happened that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my Torah? See, for Yahuwah has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he gives you on the 6th day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. And verse 30 says, so the people rested on the 7th day. In Exodus 16 was when Yahuwah gave the Shabbat to the children of Israel. It's when Yahuwah showed them what day the Shabbat fell on. He showed them the day, and it cycled every 7 days ever since. It cycled every 7 days ever since. Yahuwah gave the children of Israel the Shabbat. He gave it to them based off of it was about their obedience. It was based off of the provision that Yahuwah was giving them as far as sustenance, and them trusting Yahuwah in him providing for them. And it's the same for all of y'all. Y'all dealt with that. Some of y'all had to change jobs, or some of y'all some of y'all own businesses, and you had to stop running your business on the Shabbat. And you were worried at first, and then the Most High came through, didn't he? Because you were trusting him. And you passed the test by trusting him and actually resting on the Shabbat. That's how Yahuwah trained his people how to keep Shabbat. It's through the manna. He gave them a double portion. That's how you knew that was the 6th day. That was the day the double portion came. You're supposed to rest on that next day is the 7th day. That's how he gave them the weekly cycle to them. And he also made sure they knew what evening and morning was so they can determine when the weekly cycle, when the day, was about to transition into the next day. Because evening and morning were transition points during the weekly cycle in Genesis 1. And so Yahuwah, the way he gave that to them and reiterated that to them that's when he was giving their food. And it's interesting because you see that custom with our people and a lot of people, actually, not just our nation, but a lot of nations. A lot of times we typically, like dinner is usually around over evening, right? That's why mama and them and grandma and them used to always, at evening had the dinner ready, right? And then you have boker. You got breakfast, boker. In the morning, the boker. So that's just as a side note, that's a very through time to pray. Those are the prayer times as well that we traditionally pray during those times. During the times of the evening sacrifice, you hear Daniel talking about he was praying, and during the time of the evening oblation, the evening and morning sacrifices are great times to go into prayer during those. Those are appointed times every day of Yahuwah, windows that he established transition. Those are transition time periods. Even at Pesach, you don't even offer up the Passover until it's evening. The Passover is supposed to be offered up at twilight, at evening, which is basically the time between the evenings. Twilight is the time. It's a very specific time frame. So, keeping all that in mind, the Shabbat is about operating outside of the realm of time. It's about operating in the Ruach. The Shabbat is about operating in the Ruach. It's above and beyond what we think. It's way more to it than just resting. It's about operating outside of the realm of time into a supernatural realm, operating by the Spirit. That's why the Holy Spirit was poured out to the Mishpacha on Shavuot. That's why Shavuot is associated with Shabbat. You have to count 7 Shabbats to get to Shavuot, to get to the Feast of Weeks. After first fruits, you got to count 7 Sabbaths. Also, it's associated with the first day because the first day, Yahuwah said, "Let there be light," and he established the weekly cycle at that time. But you also see there's association with the fourth day as well, because the fourth day is when the sun, moon, and stars were created, and Yahuwah had the sun to govern the day. The sun was to govern. It was like a light to govern the day. So that's why you'll see that Shavuot is about being a light to the nations, which is what the sun was created to do, to be a light to the nations. And the nation of Israel was always symbolized as the luminaries, the sun, moon, and the stars as well. That's why the scriptures talk about us being a light to the nation as the nation of Israel. The commandments was designed to be, the Torah was designed to, the way that we would be a light to the nations as a nation is by keeping Torah, is through the Torah. It's through Torah. You see that in Deuteronomy chapter 4. We'll go there real quick. Let's see, I think it's in verse... Look at verse 5, Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5. Surely I have taught you statutes and judgments, just as Yahuwah Ma'aluah commanded me, that you should act according to them in the land which you go to possess. Therefore be careful to observe them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples. Y'all see this? It says, therefore be careful to observe them. What is them? The commandments. For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who will hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Y'all. For what great nation is there that has an Alua so near to it as Yahuwah our Alua is to us, for whatever reason we may call upon him? And what great nation is there that has such statutes and righteous judgments as are in all this Torah, which I set before you this day? It's going to cause us to be a light to the nations, of where people will be like, it'll be like the wisdom and understanding that'll come from adhering to it'll have the people like, man, this is a great nation. That's how you be a light, is through the Torah, is through keeping Torah. That's why even in the Hebrew word for Torah, you see is closely associated with the Hebrew word for light, the Aleph Wav Resh. You see the Wav Resh in the middle of the word for Hebrew word Torah, because the Torah is a light. Let there be light. Now, one thing about when Yahuwah said, let there be light, it was about turning chaos and disorder into order. So that's another thing that we got to keep in mind with light and Torah. Torah, when Yahuwah gave the Torah, he took a nation that was in chaos and disorder, really. In captivity, chaos and disorder. Wasn't no unity. People wasn't getting along. You knew that because you saw what was happening when the children of Israel were in captivity. Moshe saw two Israelites fighting each other. Then he tried to get in the middle of it, and they told on him. There was no order and there was no unity amongst Israel during the time of the Egyptian captivity. And Yahuwah pulled them up out of Egypt, Mitzrayim, put them in the wilderness, and then gave them order. He gave them the Torah. It's light, y'all. And then we know that the Ruach HaKodesh is about light as well, because what is the Ruach? The Ruach is the oil. You need the oil to keep the lamp burning. The Ruach is the oil. You need the oil to keep the lamp burning. You need the oil to keep the lamp burning. So it's about turning things that are chaotic orderly. It's like it's bringing in order out of disorder. That's why the Sabbath is so significant. You're operating outside of time. Hallelujah. Much Ahava, y'all. Most High willing, we'll go in next week. But if y'all have any questions, email me, rebirthatx@gmail.com. I'm unable to see the comments this time, but I'll be live, Most High willing, next week. But wanted to make sure to get this off to y'all. So much Ahava, y'all. Shalom, shalom.
Pack with me for my upcoming vacation with my new travel set from Monos. This is the first time I packed for a trip.
I will dwell in your secret place, and I will hide under the shadow of your wings, and I will say, you are my refuge and my deliverer. I put my trust.